want to grow as a grower? Are you tired of being put to sleep by your educational growcasts? Are you tired of hearing about products you don't fucking want and can't afford? Are you tired of being told how you should grow? Hi, I'm Johnny Apple, and joining me is everyone's favorite amphibian, the Reverend Pirate Frog. Join us as we sift through the bullshit on the internet and try to get better as growers. This is Your Average Grow.
Hey, dude.
Hey, man, what's up?
So I know you feel like shit, so I figured I would bring in some help because I'm far too lazy to carry an episode by myself. So I decided to bring in two friends of mine to help out, so I hope you don't mind. I want to introduce you to, we'll start with Howlingbuds first, my buddy from Discord. Howling, how you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Kind of nerve-wracking, but I'm glad to be here.
Oh, yeah, sure. We're super intimidating. So,
Talking frogs and apples and all.
yeah, exactly. Super professional, and that's what we get called. We're the most professional acting podcast, is what I've heard. What we wanted to know, though, is what got you started in the journey into growing, and what do you got currently in your garden, and any big plans? Keep it as general as you'd like, but just tell people about you.
Oh, yeah, it always comes back to my wife. She has weird ways of suckering me into doing things. So I'm 42, and I didn't even start smoking until I was 40. I actually was pretty adamant against doing it for myself because of trauma as a child. And so she was doing it for medicine, and it's like, you know what, I would love to spend time for you, understand this a bit more. You get into it, you understand a whole lot. I want to know. So she hooked me with Do-Si-Do, and she started me right off with that. I remember nights just zoning out, like, this is the best thing in the world. Can't find it anymore. Yeah, it was just so, anytime we could get it, we grabbed it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I just like, you know what, this actually does help. And it helped me with some of the things I was dealing with. And so I spent 2 years or whatever trying out different things, smoking. And in February, she has some seeds from her father that he's just collected over the years. And I mean, these things are 20 years old, been in a Ziploc bag in a drawer. And she couldn't get them started. And I'm like, you know what? I used to like growing gardens and stuff. I'll try. No luck. And so I read more about how to start cannabis seeds, how to grow them, and I was hooked. I'm like, wait a minute, okay. Now you got me suckered into this. I'll try. And she's like, it'd be great if you grew my favorite strand. I can't get it at the dispensary anymore. And it has like pure medicinal properties for her. And I'm like, all right. So I got them from the breeder, ran into some troubles that were just learning on my own. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave these alone. I'm going to try some other things. And yeah, I was hooked. And I have dove in deep to where I started growing a couple photos, and now I have 3 tents going. And that's in a matter of like 9 months.
Hook, line, and sinker.
And now I'm getting suckered into running more autos. And so I'm going to have a 4th.
I know. And I will say, though, you might have the most noble reason I've ever heard for someone that got into growing. So I salute you there.
Thanks.
Yeah, dude, my shit was all selfish. Like, I'm doing this for me.
Exactly. I was like, this is my hobby. I like doing it. And like I told my lady, I was like, when we look for places, this is the criteria. Got to have a garage and or space that you have to give away, basically. But I love that you are the noble one. So I'm going to use that story if anybody asks.
There you go. It's free to steal. I have no copyright on it.
Yet.
But yeah, yet. I'm going to have to rethink this one. You publish in a day, right? So I can get
we
on
have time.
This. All right.
You can get your lawyers.
I'm going to contact the lawyers. Yep. Lawyer it up. Let's go.
Let's go.
No, so it was just, it started out with a couple photos, and I was just hooked. And I have tried every way of growing since, except for salts. I haven't tried salts. But every organic, liquid newts, dry, everything, I've just bounced all over the place. I think I've honed in on something now, because in my photo tent, I have this, for me, a monster plant growing in an earth box.
It's beautiful.
And I'm hooked. I'm like, this thing is starting week 7 of flower. It's not even fading yet. It's still growing. I'm like, this is just a beast. And it's entirely the earth box. I haven't changed it. I mean, I've just been sitting here watching it, and like last night was the most boring night ever. It's like, oh,
Exactly.
I gotta put water in here. Great.
It takes so much fun out of gardening, but it is so easy. Like, you find things to do, don't you?
Well, I'm getting my hand. Well, that's the problem. Is like I have nothing to do with that plant. So okay, fine. I started up the auto tent, and that was like, oh, okay, I'm ruining these, but they're still kind of doing their thing. And then now it's like, oh, why not another auto tent? Crap. One of these plants needs to just take up my time, so I stop messing with things.
That's the Johnny approach.
But
Just
you
wing
know,
it.
it's been yeah.
Keep buying tents so you can keep experimenting.
Oh God, I'm running out of room. Well, so the problem is I'm running out of room, but then I'm also going back to those noble things, which actually has a little selfish in it too. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I like this stuff.
Oh, of course.
But I finally got her favorite. I worked with the breeder, so what's in my veg tent right now is her favorite strain, which I've been through 28 seeds now.
Wow.
I was getting, so apparently it's just part of the learning process for me. If you get like some older seeds, they take a little more love and care. I'm a bull. I don't know how to love and care for anything. So I worked with them, and they sent me out some seeds from like one of their most recent batches. So like it would, if anything happened, it would definitely would not be the seed. Sure enough, in like 48 hours, I have 4 out of 4 pop. They're growing in there. It's jinx-proof Shangri-La. And she told me like I'm gonna have to have them sex tested soon, and she's like, and I'm like, well, I just need 1 out of the 4, and statistically I should have like a 90 or 89% chance. And I'm like, I'll get 1. She's like, fuck it, if you get all 4, you're growing all 4. And I'm like, but I'm also running his strain called It's Fire for myself. I'm like, I got 4 of those to sex test, and she's like, we're running them all. I'm like, oh, okay. We'll see how this is gonna work out.
There are so many people listening, right? Well, not so many people listening. I don't want to come off and think that. There's 5 people listening right now that are extremely jealous. That they're like, man, I wish my chick or my partner would let me do that.
Oh no, but she wants them grown. But then when I start showing her the things I need to get to support that,
yes,
it's like, wait.
Okay, that's when everything comes back to reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I got that running, and I'm super stoked about this one. Because they're gonna all run in earth boxes as well. Like this is gonna be they're my second run in earth boxes, and I'm just after this one plant that I'm flowering now, I am so stoked to see how this is gonna look.
Yeah. It's a beautiful plant, and it's not just a monster for you. It is an absolute beast in that tent.
Thanks. This plant this was the runt out of the ones I was growing, so I had a little mishap in the flower tent where I had 4 of these going. The earth box, a 3-gallon for a contest. It was size limited, and then 2 10-gallons, all the same strain. And the ones that were in the fabric pots, I decided to try a new nutrient line as a foliar spray. And I'm so used to organic dry inputs and stuff. Like we don't measure in milliliters. It's handfuls and cups, and I don't have the precision. Like I wasn't even thinking in that precise state of mind, and I'm used to like ferments and everything. All my liquid stuff is by the ounce, and I'm like, all right. And it said 3 milliliters as the feeding. I gave 3 ounces of a CalMag based feeding, total calcium burn on the 3. Something in my brain that day, and I don't know what it was. Maybe I was stoned just right to the right level. Said, don't touch the earth box. Do the other 3. Leave the earth box alone. And that's exactly what I did. I fucked up the 3, and they got pulled. There was no coming back from that one. And the earth box was the 4th, and it was the one that was the runt. Like I put that in there as like, hey, I'll fuck around and try with this earth box. I don't know what happened, but yeah, the thing is raging, and no signs of stopping.
It's absolutely a beast.
It's a beautiful plant for sure.
It is. Now, before we get too far, we do have another guest I want to introduce, but I know Johnny has this asinine procedure that he likes to follow with all guests. So,
you mean the apple questions?
I unfortunately do, my friend.
So, Howling, what is your favorite, or what was the first seed you ever planted, and why was it an apple seed?
It wasn't an apple seed if you count a peach stone as a seed. I don't know why, as a kid, my grandfather would eat like 10 pounds of peaches a day, and
Wow.
and I mean, it was a
Yeah.
lot. There was always peaches in his house. That was the fruit I remember. And so we had peach pits drying in the windowsill all the time. I don't know why. He never planted them. And I decided that's what I wanted to plant. But yeah, I lost interest pretty quick at an early age. I was like, I don't have the patience for this.
What's
But
your
yeah, it was a
favorite
peach pit.
pie? And why is it apple?
Yeah, a Dutch apple pie really hits the spot, doesn't it? I mean, there's just something about it. The crumbly top, and it's the little crunchies that you get on it, the textures. Yeah, I have to go. A Dutch apple is like my go-to. I like other pies, but if there's, and actually, maybe I should make it tonight. I have one in the freezer.
All it takes is the little bit of spark
Yeah.
to get you hooked on.
What's your favorite fruit, and why is it apple?
It's not. It's a pear.
Damn right.
Pear.
That's right.
All
That's
right.
an unfortunate answer, but it's better
take
than
it.
an
It's
apple,
close enough.
I guess.
But I mean, a close to the pear is a Fuji apple. Like that is by far on the spectrum of apples I like. Fuji is far on the one end. Red Delicious is very much on the other end.
Yeah, well, that's an appropriate one.
That
But
is a terrible apple.
the lack
I
of
agree.
citrus on your list is noted, but hopefully I don't strike out with both. So I'd like to introduce my dear friend Stoney, the Alpinist, even though it's just Stoney Alpinist, but Stoney
Gentlemen,
Alpinist.
Thank you.
Dear friend of mine, if you haven't checked out his episodes on crafting cannabis, go listen. They're must listens and great entertainment. And so we have him here. We're gonna do our your average grow introduction, which won't be as fancy.
You got me blushing already, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
rest assured, the compliments stop there.
Yeah, good. Always fun to sit in. Yeah, thanks for having, fellas.
Oh, of course. My only regret is that Johnny isn't feeling at the top of his game.
We'll see what I can get out of him. We still got time. We've only just begun, man. Once I get him razzing along here.
Just begun.
That's right, man.
You hear him. He's warming up. But so Stoney, why don't you give us a brief? Don't spoil that episode, but why don't you give us a brief introduction to how Stoney got started on his grow journey and where he ended up? Because I know there's so much exciting news that's already been shared, of course, but still.
Yeah, and it just continues, man. It's like a constant evolution. It feels like every day things get a little bit different. I think about new things, new perspective into things. I learn new things, so it's constant evolution. But let's go back to what kind of got me into the growing. I think, there was always a building process because I never really set goals. I think the most important thing about me is that I set intent forth, right? So if I set a goal, then I always feel like I either achieved or not achieved, and then I just set these weird benchmarks that I feel bad about not achieving or achieving, right? But if I set intent forward, so I feel like I kind of set intent forward probably almost about a year or so ago, and it's a similar reason. Everyone was kind of tired of paying dispensary prices for it. And at the time I was doing a lot of climbing, and each year I did an outdoor climb, big multi-pitch climb. And so I would train throughout the year as a good sort of focus for mental and physical and all that sort of good stuff to just keep me focused on things. And I got to a spot like I guess it was winter time of last year, and I was doing some climbing and probably goofing around a little bit more than I should have, and injured my hand. And that was the year I was really starting to build out my rack to we carry all of our gear on our rack up the walls so that I could start going out and do some things on my own, and start climbing outside pretty much more regularly, which is, fortunately, I'll say this now, fortunately, not unfortunately, quite dangerous to do. But at the time I was really training and starting to build out the gear. And all of a sudden I had a hand injury that was going to kind of stop that from happening. So I couldn't climb for about 3 or 4 months. It's a pretty common injury, but a loud pop, and that sort of changed everything and fell off the wall. And so from there, I now had a budget, and I was thinking about things in a different way. And I said, how do I just turn this around? Because climbing was so much of a focus, and still is so much of a focus for me, and an outlet for things. But it was a way for me just to stay focused and learn, and always push myself to challenge the techniques and styles, and and things that I was seeing and doing. And I was like, how am I going to re-shift that energy somewhere? And of course, cannabis is a pretty potent part of my life. So
what better way?
What a way to get started, right?
Exactly.
So I kind of had the opportunity, and I think I started coming across some videos, and lo and behold, crossed the Autoflower podcast, and from there you just start to, as my brain is at 4 a.m. waking up, starting to dig into research and staying up late and just kind of watching videos and going down the rabbit hole. I was fortunate to find Build a Soil videos real early on.
Saved
and then
a lot of heartbreak.
Yeah. And wherever I do things, I try and find like two different perspectives or sides on it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I saw this Build a Soil approach to it that was very methodical, and just it is the Build a Soil way and complete, and started learning the fundamentals almost from a textbook version, right? And then I found All of Us Tent Pirates, right? There was this sense, and it was a straightforward video. It was Chad, and that was so tickled to see him earlier this week with the crew on there. It was awesome. Man, you talk about filling my cup up. It was just so cool to see him on there and see him soak up, and everyone in the chat, just pouring it on to the guy. But I think I saw, and they talked about it, there's that video where he's sitting in his living room, and he's like, it was just almost like one of these sitting down with your friends, and they're like, listen, dude, it's really easier than you think. Just plant it, right? I did it once. I grew it in my window. Just stop worrying about it. Just do it, okay? It's gonna be easy. We'll figure it out. Just pay attention to these videos. And it literally was that video where I was like, okay, let's do this. And then the research bug started and took me down this massive rabbit hole and field of rabbits, basically. But it was a great way to shift my energy around. So it was, back to the question. I think it was that moment in time that we oftentimes get these spots where it seems like everything that you've been working for is shifted, and everything comes out of nowhere, and you have this opportunity to take pause and relook at it from a perspective of oh, geez, that can crash my whole entire world and change everything, or let's just see what it is, and let's see where it can take us, and look where it's brought me. I mean, it's pretty amazing,
Yeah, you made a wrong turn somewhere, though. You ended up on your average grow.
Yeah. And it was really that was the Alabrie grow, right? I just started kind of popping into Discord because they were talking about it. Yeah, I've got, no experience at all with Discord, no, social media, real active usage in several decades since I was doing the restaurant work, and had just started my Instagram account. And was just starting to see all of these things happen. Popped over on the Discord. I'd never even done these old school chats, but within there, I started running into these two meatheads that, just every time I popped on there, I was like, man, these guys, in some weird way, kind of feel like a friend. And this was a whole new experience for me. I'd never had that. I'd always been so treasured, physical and contact with someone in the same room, and even telephone conversations were difficult for me. And here I am, like you were saying earlier, Howling, we come to these things in such later parts of life. And all of a sudden I found myself making friends and making connections that I would have never had before, right? And started to show a side of me that no one had really seen, because I had to live in that sort of clandestine space, right? And then it was that Alabrie grow, right? And I remember having that conversation with you, Rev, and saying, when you were like, hey, are you in or not? And I'm going back and forth with Johnny. And I'm at the same time, guys, I don't know if I can do this. I'm just a dumb grower. I've only grown once. I'm really afraid I'm going to screw this up. My pictures are going to look terrible. I'm going to be so embarrassed at things. I don't know, guys. And you're like, just do it. And Johnny was like, do it, man. What's going to hurt? And it was, it was really one of those phone calls. It was just not too far different than Chad's video of dude, do it. It's us. It's cool. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll help you.
Yeah. And it turns out that you have some of the most beautiful bonsai plants and growth in the whole contest, dude. Well, it's not even a contest, it's a grow along, but
it's interesting because that's the we love the Earth Box. Sounds like Howling and I, who let me also point out that we represent the Central Coast here. So I know you got the West
no
Coast
such
tied
thing.
down.
There's no such thing as a Central Coast. By
Hey,
definition,
listen.
it can't be a coast.
There's waves on this damn lake here.
It doesn't
just because
matter.
you're afraid to serve them.
No.
Doesn't necessarily
Not
mean they can't be served, my friend. But
it is.
I was looking
it is
at them
not
just the other day.
It is not a fear of surfing. It is a reward versus satisfaction play, right? The best day on the lake is the worst day out here. But
Well,
that just not talking trash to begin
duly
with.
noted.
I
Duly
will
noted.
say, I
Noted.
find it extremely difficult to consider a freshwater lake a part of a coast, considering the definition of coast.
Well,
But
I tell
we'll
you
move
what.
on.
Yeah, I tell you what, we'll show you some videos. We'll show you some videos
Oh,
of
I've
some
seen it. Those-
apocalypse snows, and you'll come. Yeah, and I know. Here's the deal: we're gonna get you here, but we'll bring you here, tease you on the summer, right, Howling?
You
We'll get
gotta-
in here.
I'd have to
when
buy a
it's-
pair of pants.
Yeah. Well, we'll get you those ones that zip on at the bottom, Rev. So
Yeah.
we can.
Like the ones we give Johnny where they zip
Right.
out in the back.
Yeah, we'll pick it right out. We'll pick you right out. But
I'm
You
excited.
got to be able to rip those off quick. So
That's right, man. Easy access. It's the philosophy of my life.
But I digress, dude. Yeah, the earth boxes are. It sounds like a pretty common trait with us, and I love growing in those things. And I think that they also provide incredible imagery. But I think they've got their challenges. Maybe we can talk about them another time. But sounds like we are all fans of the earth boxes around here. But
Yeah. In fact, we were just talking about the earth boxes in our Discord. We were talking about soil shape versus fabric, and what the container's made of, the shape of the soil, how much soil, and how that affects how it affects the linear aspect of the autoflower. And we had a great conversation with Big Green Guy, who's an upcoming guest, and what a tie-in. Someone
Yeah.
you're deeply associated with now.
oh man, with great fortune, I must say. Yeah, I'm fortunate to be a tester on the team. I had the opportunity to throw my hat in the ring a little while ago with him, and have had a chance to catch up with him a few times in the Discord and just watch and learn. And he's one of those guys. I mean, I popped an Instagram post out there today for him. He just really is a pretty awesome, genuine person, and he is one of the OGs of what we are. If you really look back in his lineage, I mean, he was on the Autoflower podcast. He's the one that got me started into this perpetual goal of where I'm, just knocking on the door right now, literally about to soak seeds tonight. All my stones are tucked into the pots, and they've been watered, ready to go. And I get to start my tester adventure with the Big Green Guy, with just to kind of use as a muse in my Instagram. So if you guys get a chance, and if you're not on Discord and you're listening to this, make sure you do pop over and try and find, and on any of the he pops around to all of them, and just trail him. Even if you're not asking questions or anything, just watch, because every time he's on, you get a good chuckle out of things. He'll help anyone that he possibly can, and he just wants to see amazing flowers grown. And the other part is he grows incredible cannabis.
Yeah, he does.
And he got me started on that perpetual goal. So he really is the old school. So
and
we're
really
old enough together. So
I'm really excited that you're on his team, and I'm really excited because like I said, we have him upcoming as a guest. Unfortunately, you just talked about how nice he is, and I'm actually going to have to be moderating a fierce debate, I'm trying to call it so it's polite, between Johnny and BGG. Because they are going to fight.
I don't know about all that.
I'm just kidding.
We
If you
might.
don't know, they like to go at each other for fun.
No, I hate the guy. He's terrible. He's the worst.
See,
Get off your ass and make some blueberry, I told him, and he doesn't want to listen to me.
it's so if you look forward to more of this in spades, but so the interesting thing that you brought up about the earth boxes and all of that I've interrupted you twice now on is you've got some interesting stuff coming up. I don't know what you want to speak on it, but I know that you're kind of helping us with scheduling and coming up with some cool stuff for what we're planning on in the next grow. And I know Howlingbuds is involved with that one too, much to his dismay.
Yeah, actually, I think he's the continuing spur into this. I think he's going to be our galvanizing force to put us all together on it. So, yeah, we've been chatting over on the Discord, and I'm starting up with this perpetual goal in mind, and starting to think about what I've got 2 that'll be running into the new spring pots, and then I'm gonna be ready for another 2 to roll in. So I know as a part of what my initial testing, I got to get a bit of the Odinsons, which if anyone's watching some of that being grown out there, I'm waiting for this enormous Jurassic-sized plant that's going to be coming. And so I really had to sit back and say, what are some of the really cool things that are coming out? And I'm not sure very many people within our community that haven't, had or heard about these Mango Smile and how much of an impact it's kind of rippled through all of the tents, creeping through. So it's, we've all kind of picked up along the way our Mango Smiles, and we're trying to figure out a time to align to it. I think we all are getting set for a really long run of it. So it's going to work out really well sitting next to the Odinsons. And if something comes on the shorter period of time before that, is going to be my goal. But yeah, it sounds like we're all going to be growing some Mango Smile, and we just started chatting some ideas about how to have some fun with it. I mean, there was a pretty cool grow along that was pulled together, and I think even some of the most incredible pictures that I've seen in quite a while were a part of that grow along. So super organized, lots of sponsors and that sort of stuff. So this is kind of the fallout. This is like, hey, everyone wanted to get some Mango Smile and get it into our tents. So I think it's just really going to be a handful of us sitting together and trying to align for timing. I think the most amazing part, and this goes back to when we were growing the Alebrije, and even now that I'm starting to grow alongside this team, is that it really gives me this sense of comfort jumping into growing a strain, knowing that there's going to be pictures and folks that are just a week or 2 ahead of me that I can use as a kind of a benchmark to meter.
Oh, so, absolutely.
I mean, it's been really so much fun with this Alebrije. I really have had a blast with it. It's been fun to use it as a muse and really, focus in on it and be really creative around it and watch this beautiful plant grow into an incredible flower. And so now there's a little part of me that was super hollow. Kind of when I cut it down, I was like, now what? I literally took pictures yesterday of it hanging in there, and I'm like, there's just not as many cool angles and fun ways to shoot this,
There's only so much of a dark tent I can shoot.
Yeah, and it was just, it was a few days ago that Howling was like, hey, when are we doing this? Who's doing this? I got to get this figured out. So, so how did you come to Mango Smile? I mean, I was fortunate enough. I caught this a while ago and just jumped in on one of the weeklies. But how'd you find your beans, brother?
It all started. I think G3 was talking about CC and the podcast, and I was like, what, this sounds really good. And I'm not a narrow leaf variety type person, but I'm like, just the way this is being described, got to be wrong sometime. You know what? I could think just like you, but then that makes both of us wrong.
That's true. You're the yin to my yang.
Yeah. As long as we balance each other, that's all that matters. And so this, the way it was described, I'm like, I love this thing, but I kept on holding off. I'm like, I'm still getting my feet wet with autos. And then I listened to G3 again, talking to you guys, and there was a couple people that are going to kind of grow around the same time, and they're going to do it. And I'm like, shit, I'm all over this, because I got bit by the grow along bug, and the photo that's in the earth box right now was part of a contest that I'm not growing to contest parameters, but I'm growing along on the same schedule, and it's been wonderful. It's just a connection that you have with other people that you don't otherwise get when you're talking about different strains and stuff. And I'm like, so this one, I might have started growing cannabis because of my wife, but this grow is completely selfish because I want to connect more. I don't really care about the plant. It's going to be fun, whatever happens with it. But I need to have something I do with other people, and that just gives a connection.
Well, and on top of all of that, that's how Johnny and I formed a closer relationship. That's how actually we became heterosexual life partners. we started we were really excited for the Alabrije drop, and I was like, he was like, hey, let's do a grow long, or let's grow this together thing in a solo cup. And I was like, yeah, let's do a grow long for a solo cup. And then it just grew into what I ultimately really wanted, was because I was going to grow it anyway. And so it just turned into a lot of people growing, and it was exactly like you said, Stoney. It's a good visual representation, and it's a cool thing to have in common with someone, so that you can start a conversation with them about the plant.
Well, it's so cool
something
because,
lasting.
yeah, I mean, the fucking community kind of took this grow along over. They took it out of our hands. They're like, nah. Or this isn't no solo cup shit from the frog and the fucking apple. This is gonna be some legit shit. Everybody's doing it. It was like, whoa, okay. Now it's way more than I thought it was gonna be. Turned out to be so fucking cool. The community just took it over. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think that organic growth thing is that common thread that seems to be coming through, right? And I think that's how the Mango Smile went, right? Credit to Barely as well, right? I think when people say, like, what is the, we hear G3, I think what we heard and what the common thread from everybody with the Mango Smile is the positivity that comes out of it, the creativity that comes, the energy that comes out of it, the pleasantness. And I think that as we continue to evolve our flowers from, the original ruderalis, that this is a new and exciting thing within our community to have. The flavor profile makes you want to come back to it like candy. It's not kind of, heavy and cloying. I think there's common reasons why that if we just strip away, who's shouting it the loudest, because even the pictures that come up from everybody growing them makes you want to grow these things.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And the descriptions alone that were written about it are amazing and make you want to grow it. But the common thread is just how joyful and the spirit and energy that it brings out of people. So I think that's what everyone cues in on too. And then just to grow together. Like, we committed to something. We handed each other a commitment at the beginning of a grow along of Alabrije that, hey, we're in this together, guys, for the next 90 days. And we've all stayed in there for each other and together, right?
And it's everyone gets stoked on everyone else's grow, and everyone's there to answer questions. And what I really like, and something that I'll throw to you because you know more, and there's a reason we want you to tackle this, but I want to organically build it into something where we can just do grow-alongs of different stuff and have winners of different stuff. But as a little reward for sitting through this, I'm going to announce that whoever does win or end up participating for whatever in the future, I will hand make them a trophy in my shop.
That's what we needed to hear. Yeah, we were starting to buzz around these ideas, and I think that's what fuels me, right? Like, let's just kind of start it there. This won't be something that I'll lead, right? Because I don't like to lead by, like, pulling people. I'm going to push the community around, and that's where this sort of organic thing. So some of the things that we sat around and talked about is, like, we all started sparking these really cool ideas. And what started kind of like what you were just talking about, Johnny, like, started off with the solo cup between you and Rev. That energy started to buzz, and all the cogs started stirring. The other night we were chatting on it, and I was like, hey guys, let's just let this marinate. Let's just sit on it. And we all marinated on it. We came back the next day, and sparks were even continued to fly. So, where we thought about doing something that would be, all right, we got to jam together something for this Mango Smile. It's like we kind of realized, and this is the beauty of doing things. And this goes back to a guy that I worked with on the farm that would say this all the time to me, and I never caught it. I never understood it until, unfortunately, he was passed. But he would always say, you just got to do this. We got to do this organically. And when you would say that organically, he was a super organic dude and could do anything you would imagine, and grew the most amazing tomatoes. Wink, wink. We'll talk about that another story time. But grew the most amazing tomatoes, right? But he would just say, you got to let this thing happen. If you try and force it and then pull the trigger on it, it's never going to work. You just got to start small, and you got to start with your soil and build it up from there. So I think we started that soil, dude. Like, we mixed a super soil of ideas, and it's looking like it's probably going to be something bigger, because I think the core essence of it, what we thought through, was like, how do we get the experience of connecting more people here on your average grow on the Discord, and create that more like energy from an organic perspective, right? And we just kept saying to each other, like, it's got to be average, right? It can't be what you would expect. So I mean, who knows where this could go? And that's like the beauty of it, is I keep saying, like, let's not put boundaries on it. Let's not put time frames yet on it. Let's just stay in a really creative space of what it could be, and how might we do it can come down the road, right? We'll figure that out, and then we'll figure logistics, but let's just explore it, man. Let's just have fun with it and see what it could be. And like, ideas went from, like, you know, organic grow to like worst picture, or you know, worst failure, or like
Johnnying award,
right? How do we like come up with these things that would be so average, right? We all love totems, and you guys have talked about it here on the show before. And we all love putting these things in there. Or is it, you know, who's got the best stones in there, right? Yeah. It could be any of these, and these will be the fun things along the way. And then that way there's not as much of a competitive nature, because at the end of the day, I think there's a certain competitive aspect to us, but we're all stoners. And I think back to what you were saying, Howling, and maybe it's just a different side of what you were craving for, this sort of connection, is that I think that there's this sense as we as growers, that we are so focused, especially hearing how organic you are with your dry amendments and everything. I think we value so much more about the process of what we're doing rather than the end result, right? Mm-hmm. And I think any good creative does that. We have the great fortune, I'll say this, where we have a finite period where our flower is done when it's done, right? And the next step is going to happen. And a lot of creative mediums like cooking and art and anything else, you can work and never be finished. We get to with flowers, but I think we, as growers, value more the learning along the way and the process. And you said it when we very first begun, Howling. I'm bored. I just put water in the earth box, right? Right? Yeah. So do you feel that way as kind of as a creative spirit in the growing, or?
You know, it's funny for me for growing. I got into brewing beer, and I'm so impatient. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for it to be done. Like, I just got bored. And now it's like I can never take on a hobby that takes that long, or what I thought was that long. and then I get growing, and I'm like, and this is part of the therapy for me. It's in this creative, like, is the first hobby I've had, and I've had a few that I've dove really deep into, that I might get like frustrated. You're gonna when things don't go right, but I get over it really quick, and I'm not that type of person. And I don't get over failure quick. But it's like, oh, that plant, I just probably killed it. It sucks. I'll do something about it. I'll move on. I'll go to the next one. I'll do better. I'll learn from it. Exactly. And it's just that this whole, and it's just, and it never stops. And that like, that's like a little tickle to my brain. It's like, it never stops. There's always something new. And it doesn't matter even if it's not like growing, it's like, oh, I can go learn about worm bins and what that can do. Or I can stop buying EM1 and start making labs. It's like, it's just so much.
Well, and I think Stoney touched on something earlier too, when it's such a common thread with a lot of growers, but I think we all share a very similar mindset. We very much enjoy and have fun learning. Like, you wake up early, excited to learn and test things, and even the like simplest minded experiment is fun. So it's just like you get excited. There's so much to learn, like you said, Howling. Like the other day, I was learning something. I forget what I was learning exactly, but I was like just a small little tidbit, and I was like, hell yeah, that's an awesome thing to learn today. I was just stoked.
What led you both of you to start with organics? Howling, you said you started growing for your wife. What made you want to start growing organically then?
You know, organic stuff just resonates with me. And it's not just with organic growing, it's organic food. It's the whole process that goes into it and giving back to the earth. It's take it from the earth and give it back, and the cycle that goes on of life. And so I try, like, you know, things are expensive. We're all in hard times, and you can't buy all organic stuff or grass-fed stuff. And you know what, you make choices, but I try as best as I can. I used to have organic gardens and growing like the normal vegetables, and it just resonates with me. And so going, like, it was like not even a choice. Growing any kind of plant, it's like I go straight to organics because it's just a cycle. It's something that we spent thousands and thousands or millions of years plants cultivating themselves and learning how to grow in this whole system that goes around it. And it's like, I'm going to replace that with a jug of liquid. Like,
Yeah,
that's not life.
It was humans fucking, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it's like, it's our own arrogance that makes us think that we could do it better than Mother Nature's been doing
Right.
it for a millennia.
Right. And you know what? I can't deny it. Like, these salt growers and hydro growers, they produce phenomenal plants. I can't fault them for that. But that's not my goal. Like, I'm not just looking for the plant. I'm looking for the process that got me to that. I'm looking for everything that went into it and what's coming out of it and what I'm giving back. And it's all matters to me. And for like salt growers, it's like they dump some bottles into a pot, they toss the pot at the end, and that's it. It's like so much waste of life. And I don't have that. I have earth boxes and 20-gallon pots, and I plan on reusing them for multiple cycles and giving back to that life in it. And then when their life, I think, is done, I'll toss it to somewhere else where they can continue to grow, and I'll start fresh again. And it's just this life cycle that happens, and it means a lot to me. Like that, if I had to grow any other way, I would not grow.
So you're talking about dumping and re-amending, or are you going to go no-till with those?
I'm gonna try to go no-till.
In the earth boxes too?
Yep, maybe. I haven't decided, but I think so. Not
Johnny's
with any
gonna
that
try.
are gonna. Not with any that's gonna be my wife's strain that I'm growing for her. Like, I can't fuck that up. I will. It's gonna be fresh and pristine, and I have a fresh earth box waiting for it with soil. Like, I'm not gonna screw around learning on the plant that I'm trying to make the best plant I've ever grown for her. But
We are not the same.
Any of the other ones, like the earth box that's running right now, I plan to do no-till, and that's what the strain for me is going to go into. And if I fuck it up, I fuck it up. But with the way this thing rages, I have a high confidence that I'm not going to mess it up. Maybe I'll run into some troubles, but this thing balances itself so well, and so I have high confidence that'll work well. But yeah, with hers, nope, it's fresh.
Fair enough. What about you, Stoney? What got you started organically?
You know, I mean, a lot of people think it's, we'll go to the culinary side or the chef side of me that, worked at an organic farm, and, I had the organic moniker around all the time, especially at a fine dining restaurant. But I don't think it was really that, right? Again, I think it does go back to working with Farmer Ted, right? I started working at the farm after a really bad burnout phase in my career. I finally achieved this spot working at a restaurant, and I was the executive chef, and we were getting all the accolades, and it was so much pressure. And I finally was like, I don't need to do this forever. I couldn't do this forever, and I left to go work at a farm that I was starting to kind of help come along and utilizing their stuff in the restaurant. And they had micro greenhouses, and they grew large amounts of microgreens for me. And then we started selling it to all around, and we were doing weddings. And so coming into this farm and being surrounded by a crew of summertime, uber organic. I mean, I'm talking very organic folks that, were coming out to this, these 9 square acres surrounded by the most inorganic soil, around, right, because of all of the cattle and corn and soy and everything grown. And they worked tirelessly and really inspired me to jump into the field with them and help and start growing plants and herbs and test plots and that sort of stuff. So that's like kind of spurred this organic. So that organic aspect didn't really, I know it's really intimidating. And I think that's one of the things that as I go forward, like I try and demystify a lot of the challenge that goes out there with organic growing, because to me it just seemed a very natural process to understand. I think in smaller relative space like that, like I can think and understand what's going on and with all the mycorrhiza and the fungal network that's happening, and I can understand the bacterial things that are going on, and I can see it in a different perspective in my head. So it didn't intimidate me, and I knew, because everyone said, hey, if you're going to do organics, man, there's a long learning curve to it. And I like those challenges. That's what I do this for, as I was saying before, is to learn. And I was like, okay, so this is the opportunity. I know I'm going to need to learn it to do it right and to do it proper. So I think those were some of the impetus of it. But going along the way and doing my early research and hearing so much about the value of the end result, that you wouldn't see the volume, you wouldn't see the big, huge stacked buds, but that you would see a much higher quality of the terpenes, the THCs that are delivered, and the plant being cleaner, and flavors, and all these other things that really were attracted to for a quality perspective. Because ultimately, as a chef, like, organic's fine, right? But it's just a word, it's just a collection of letters, right? It more often than not means that someone took extra care with whatever they crafted, right? And so that's why there's these videos of me, and there's one on Vimeo if anyone ever scratches through the surface. But you can see me going through like farmers markets, and you can see me going through the greenhouse of where I ended up working. Like, there's just a quality of flavor that comes that I really couldn't put words upon. And I think that's what was like, okay, well, it just makes sense to me that I would continue that through my cannabis, because I didn't need volume, right? I'm a single patient. In our state, we're allowed 5, right? And looking at some of the averages and doing all the calculations, I'm like, if I run a normal cycle with what I was already starting to tease into, of course, it grew to a little bit bigger of a tenth than I had initially started with, but that's another story on its own. But
tends to happen.
Yes, tends to happen, and now it continues to add on to you. But at the time I was looking at it, like, the volume of it, I don't need massive amounts. And what I knew I needed for my medicine was variety, and so that took me to the autoflowers. And then from there, it was like, well, if I'm going to have these different pots, I should have the best battery underneath them to give them everything that they need, because it follows into a philosophy that, was really taught to me by one of my greatest mentors, is that, if you have incredible products and you have sound methods and techniques that have been tried and true, that you've learned and you've mastered and you've seen all these different ways, and you have incredible pieces of equipment that can handle those things, if you just get out of the thing's way, it'll really reveal itself. And the more that you try and manipulate, and the more that you try and force or change or do this or allow for this, the less that you're going to get in the end. Because these are incredible things. I knew it. These are incredible flowers that were going to grow no matter what. So if I just did everything organically, stayed out of the way, stayed extremely patient, and just waited, I knew what was going to come was going to be the most amazing thing. And it's proven. So 2 rounds down. So organic, definitely. And it's the process. It's the connection to it too. Like you were saying,
Padre,
Howling.
if you bring in one more guest that talks about patience.
It's a long single plan. I'm sorry. I'm wiping tears away from my eyes. It was such a beautiful, and by the way, putting way too much pressure on me later in the show, so I'm going to need you to tone that bullshit down.
Patience is worth it, buddy. It's worth it.
Yeah. But I agree. I mean, that organics to me, and in my opinion, is just by far the only way to grow, because you can do so much yourself. You can reuse your soil, there's so many benefits that I don't need to relist.
I was listening to I think it was Shango Loso on Shaping Fire. So another great podcast for really digging in for education. Didn't mean to drop it on here, but we always love to spread source and get out
the
there.
more knowledge, the better.
Yeah, it's a fantastic one. And he had a soil scientist on, and she brought up. So actually, she was doing fog ponics. It was incredible. I was like, wow. Of course, my brain already started like tingling off, because I can't stand routine things. As soon as I feel like I've got something in mind, I know it's not like it should be, but as soon as I have something in mind, it's like, okay, I got that. I got to figure something else out. So I'm always onto this new adventure. And she was talking fog ponics, and my mind was like, wow, fog ponics and cannabis. But her point was she was studying kind of the interaction of the soil, right, and what was going on, and really looking at the roots. But she talked anecdotally about the use of salts versus organics, right? And her point was, hey, when you give salts, you're giving the plant everything that it needs. And so what her observation was, and I thought it was kind of astute, and interested to hear anyone else's along the way, either on Now or even on Discord, but she pointed to the fact that yes, the flowers that are grown in these salts, they don't have everything that they possibly need at the right specific time, they don't necessarily have that challenge or fight, and that's usually the resistance spot where they tend to put out more of the trichomes, put out more of the things that will repel plants away from it, right? So she said they look very beautiful, but they oftentimes don't necessarily have the terpene profile. They're larger because they've grown, but they don't necessarily haven't been strained in a sense, for that lack of a better term, to really make them bring more of those the traits that we as medicinal cannabis users really are looking for, right? It's great to have it beautiful, but at the end of the day, guys, we have jars and jars of it, right? That no one really sees, right? And in the end, like we'll just it's cool. We're really dainty with those first handful, right? But by the time we crack the second and third jar, it's like you whiz the thing open, right? You dump a handful out and take it. Like it's still funny for me to watch, just because I'm still so new in this. Like to catch myself, whizzing open a giant jar and grabbing a handful to like pick out the few. When it just feels like less than a year ago, I was like opening up a 3.5 gram and counting, like picking one out, this like polished little boulder in there, right? Yeah. Still cooks my noodles sometimes, but
one of the benefits of home growing, man.
Yeah, so I think, we talk about salts and we talk about organics and the advantages they bring. Yeah, I think that there's some tangible physical benefits that you get out of it in the end. But I think we all know that it's the connection, right? It's this time spent with our plant. And, even in the earth boxes, I got to tell you guys, I found ways with that earth box. Like you can give a tea on a weekly basis, right? It needs to be a very, very weak. You can give top dressings. You can give these things where we tend to do in earth boxes. And I think Jeremy does a great job of talking about it. When we look at that schedule, we tend to like wait to put all of our top dressing together and then put it on like on a special part of the week. There's nothing stopping you from putting it and spreading it out a little bit each day, right? And if you do it in a sequential cycle of, get the party there, get the party started, wait till the party starts to die down, bring in the libations, right? And then that usually brings more people to the party or new fresh faces to the party, and the old ones die off, right?
No, trust me, I have a whole episode planned where we bring you in to talk about some of the organic practices that you and I do, so that we can I some of the stuff that you do, just I love, like your pre-ferment of your top dressing.
Yeah, that fuzzy thing was a blast. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that one.
But we'll have to save that.
Yeah, we'll save it. We'll put that one in the pocket.
Otherwise, poor sick Johnny will have a fever dream. And
you staying with us, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. You guys are keeping me up and keeping me going. I feel good.
I think you sound better than when we started talking, so I think we're healing you, my man.
How you doing, Howling?
With your smoothing
I'm
voices.
doing great.
Good. So, do you have any other big plans in the future, either of you, for what you got going other than the Mango Smile and the Near Testers, or are you guys pretty? Because you just harvested Stony, and didn't you harvest recently too, Howling?
Yeah, you know what? It's been about a month, but I harvested 3 autos about a month ago.
Mm-hmm. So
did
you
fabulous.
Cure them,
Yeah, I can never wait for the full cure.
Okay. I don't blame you. I don't either.
It's from day one. Like, I'm already smoking it. I wait to give it to my wife for a bit. She likes a little smoother smoke, and if it's just fresh off of drying, it's a little too harsh. Mm-hmm. But I start right away. I can't wait. I'm so impatient. I have to know what's going on. I don't
feel so bad now.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll be halfway through my stash by the time it's done curing, and
you're not in bad company here, dude.
Yeah, but those 3 strains are, oh man, they're rock stars. Especially that Skittles. Even though I had a bad time the other night, that's just a good sign of what it is. Yeah. I just overdid it. It wasn't the plant. and it hit my wife. It hit my wife. It hit my son. It's just a good one. So I just harvested recently. I'll harvest the flower 10 in probably a couple weeks. It's week 7. I don't think it's gonna finish at week 8. It might finish like week 10. So
nice.
How many 10s do you have, Howling?
Well, I have three, which will soon be four. So I
Rad.
got a seedling veg tent where I screw around in and veg. At least 75% of veg is done in there. I like to transplant into my flower tent and leave it for like a week or two and get the light dialed in because it's a different light and figure it all out before I flip. And then I have the third tent is where I have two autoflowers. And then I'm gonna run mango, so I'm gonna have to have a spot for that.
Wait, you're getting a whole new tent just to run the Mango Smile?
Because I'm a dumbass.
Oh man,
That's
we broke you.
no,
No, no, no.
It's
no, no,
it's
you're not a
perspective, brother.
dumbass.
That's dedication.
You are doing
my man.
exactly what you should. Because
That's
I
dedication,
bought,
my dude.
I turned my dry tent into a dedicated growing tent for the tangy grow along.
Well, that's funny because the tent that I'm using is still in the box for when I was gonna dry. I bought it just for drying. Yeah, it's gonna be the mango tent. I'll keep on drying it. I'll keep on drying in the spare bathroom down here. I don't need a tent.
Yeah, yeah. So it's dedication. That's the fun. But I also, before I forget, there's two things that we have to do. Johnny didn't ask Stoney the question.
Oh geez, what was the first seed you ever planted, and why was it apple?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I can go all the way back to the first seed because it probably
Back
would
before
be
the wheel was invented.
Yeah, like it could be that long ago. So I'll say I'm going to go back to my first cannabis seed because I think that was probably the most important one. And I remember it very much so because it was very purposeful, as I think anyone knows that anything about me, I'm very purposeful with what I do.
No.
Yeah. You don't say.
The Outlier ZF4. It was the one as I sat there and looked at all my pouches and looked at my things and took the moment of reflection and was like, hey, this is a pretty big deal for me. I've been working towards this now for a long time. Like, this is the moment. And I just took pause in it. And I said, this is important. So I grabbed the Outlier Z. So I'll say that is my first seed that I planted and one that I'll hold with me for quite a while, my man.
What is your favorite pie, and why is it apple?
Well, so I'm probably a little bit more unique. So it's a tarte tatin, right? It's a little bit different of a pie, right? Because a
What
Dutch
did you just
apple.
say?
What?
What was
A
that
tart-
word?
It's a tarte tatin, right?
Oh my
Is that
goodness.
French?
Yes, it is. I did that
I'm
one
sorry.
just
We
for
have
you.
to move on.
Yes, I caught that French one before. So, but if I'm gonna do something special with an apple for myself, it can be done in a large format, but to do it small, and it's a little bit specific anymore these days because I do a lot of Dutch apple pies. It's one of my favorite and easy ones to make. We always just keep some of the streusel downstairs in the freezer. But if I'm doing a tarte tatin, I like to play with the apples. So anymore these days, my two favorite ones have been the Pink Lady and the Jazz. Apples to eat and putting them in combination. The Pink Lady takes on this like rosy hue to it, and it has the most incredible, delicate, like sweet and sugar acid balance to it, but holds up because it's key. And you guys said it earlier when you talked about those Red Delicious, those garbage ones that looked good in the 70s. I am not a fan of the mealy apples, so anything with that into it is well, those are for teachers' desks in the 30s and 40s, I guess is the nicest way to say it.
Yeah.
But if any more these days, I need that sort of balance between super sweet and crisp and some acidity. So these apples bring it to it. So the tarte tatin is something that is made by really thinly. It's all about method and technique, slicing the apples and laying them in and gently cooking them in butter. And then there's a really tender, delicate dough that goes over the top of it and is baked. And when it's finished up, there's a little caramelization that happens from the sugar that you add into it that creates a little gooey, crispy, edgy to it. And then you flip it over, and it's just this delicate, buttery, flaky tarte tatin, and hit with a little powdered sugar if you can allow it to cool. But kind of like my cannabis, I don't typically let it cool before I go poking on it. So, yeah,
I
that would
don't
say
even
that's
like
my
dessert, and that sounds amazing.
well,
Same
and just
way, man.
yeah, gotta have some sort of like really dense, rich ice cream with this one. No air run over in this one. I don't need ice cream. I need something as dense as gelato with this one. So delicate, rich, pull it apart, kind of ribbons of ice cream. Gotta be vanilla, no bean in it, and not too
French
much egg.
French vanilla?
No. That's too much egg with the tatin. You need something light and delicate, so it just needs to be a real thin cream. So low, if anything, I'll use like egg whites in it, and maybe one yolk for every 3. So when I make the base, but it's custard in form.
Oh, obviously the 1-to-3 ratio. Duh.
Yeah, well, I don't like it too yellow, man. You got to keep it nice and delicate. The eyes are on the apples. Man.
I didn't know there was a difference between vanilla and French vanilla that much, so that it was
Custard,
also egg.
Yeah. You see too much yolk in there, then it just gets too rich, too chlorine. But so now I'm gonna flip it back on you, right? Because you guys got these great questions on apples, so I'm gonna flip it back on you.
You're not done.
No, I got one.
Oh,
more.
wait, okay. Go ahead.
What's your favorite fruit, and why is it apple?
I don't know if you've ever had a gooseberry before, but they're incredible. They're like these little.
Dude, this is the average show.
Okay.
Nothing about any of your answers are average.
Okay.
You're way too cool.
For lunch today, I had caviar and champagne.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Did you say gooseberry?
Yeah. How about this? I'll go back. I am a banana, right? Because bananas, I think, are the super fuel. And hey, turns out we can put them in our cannabis too. But the key is when you eat your bananas, I eat them from the bottom. You never peel from the stem. You peel from the bottom.
No. Always from the bottom.
And you're supposed to take the top pinch off, right? So you pinch that because that's the actual seed, right? Because you know that about the banana. Like the very bottom is where the seed is.
Yes,
so if you eat that,
yes, we all knew that.
Yep.
Yeah. Obviously,
that's why
we all
if
learned
you
that in like high school.
Middle
school, maybe.
you just pinch the very tip and then you grab it right off and then you've got your bananas. But that's so banana is my fruit. So
Awesome.
now do I get to turn around on you?
Not the gooseberry.
No, we'll leave that one for
But
another one.
for knowledge, is a gooseberry a real thing?
Look it up. Guess you're gonna have to.
I refuse to Google it.
Cape berries is another name
I'd rather
for it,
live
I
in
believe.
ignorance.
Cape berries, they're sweet pickled is incredible to do with them. You can do a confiture of them, also is incredible to do. So think a little citrusy, think a little berry. They're like a really cool sensory thing. If you eat them, they're a little almost like if you've ever had a tomatillo.
Yes.
How it's got that sort of like husk on the outside, the thin paper that just kind of, when you kind of peel it away and you reveal the inside and it's like shiny and almost kind of sticky a little bit. It's just like that, but you pop it in your mouth and it just pops and it's got these little seeds in it and it's just a cool experience altogether. Flavor's incredible.
That's
kind of
dope.
tropical, a little sweet, little tart. But
Where do they
it's pretty
grow?
rad. On the ground. They're like a ground, like almost like think blueberry or tomatillo, like in a low bush kind of area. But cooler areas tend to be. So we get them up here a little bit in the north we see, but I think they may be even up like Maine and that sort of thing. Well, they're incredible. But so now do I get to flip it around on you?
Sure. Take the reins.
All right, my buddy. I've been waiting for this one. All right, so you ask all these great questions about apples, but I'm going to flip this one around on you. So eating an apple, how do you eat your apple?
Generally speaking, I cut it up, cut the core off, and eat it in pieces.
Bites and pieces, huh? Because this
Yeah,
really
like-
speaks volumes
Wait.
about a person.
You cut your apple into like slices before you eat it, like a child.
Yeah, it's just easier. I mean, I'll eat an apple, like just fucking going ham
Does
at it.
your
But when I'm
wife
at
do
home
it
and I
for
have a
you,
knife,
and do you get a side of caramel?
No. I have to defend him here. I hate doing this. This hurts inside. But I do have to defend this. Like ever since my youngest was born, when he started eating apples and pears, he likes them sliced, and I'm like, oh, this is such a pain in the ass. Until I started eating them, I'm like, this is genius. I'm like, I like finger food, and I could take
get
bits
so
of it,
much
and I don't
more
have
of
to. And I have a beard, so like, I don't want to bite into like a pear and have juices all over it. And no, it's just perfect. It's the perfect delivery mechanism that just sucks to cut.
I will say though, I have a solution to your pear and beard issue. As a man with a beard, don't eat pears. Generally,
Where there's a
works
will,
for
there's a
me.
way.
Fair
man.
enough.
Where there's a will, there's a
But
way.
I take back everything I said. Johnny, that is the superior way to have apples.
Do you see how revealing this is? You see how revealing this question can be, Johnny?
I just can't be bothered, and when I have an apple, which isn't as often as it should be.
So you just go Cro-Magnon right at it, man?
Oh, absolutely, like a criminal, like the criminal that I am. I eat an apple like it's off the tree, and then I punch a cop, and I eat a steak with my bare hands like a monster. No,
do you eat the core all the way through? I mean, because there's people that do that too.
Hell no. I waste far too much of the apple. Like I said, it is the most inefficient way.
Well, they have those little like press cutters. You can.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I own one. I just used it for the first time since we've bought it to feed the worm bin.
Yeah, they're pretty dangerous. And here's my thought: they always make too big a chunk. So if you're gonna cut your apples, guys, cut them thinner, because that just delivers more flavor. So make sure that they're not like those big giant wedges ones that are almost like an inch thick. You get way less flavor out of it if you cut that. If I'm going to cut an apple down, I'll split it down the middle. And trust me, my little ones need their apples cored out and cut into thin slices now because I've spoiled them all of these years for the same thing. But I'll take that apple.
Right,
yeah, I know, and it's a curse. But they see me do it, and their friends are like, "What is your dad doing?" Our parents just throw an apple So I'll take it. I'll split it in half right down the middle from the top, right, and then lay it flat. Cut that in half, and then the trick is you slide it apart and you take your knife at about a 45-degree angle, and that's where you pop the core out. And it's just one swift movement. So you take that. So you take your apple, you split it in half, lay it flat, right? Cut that flat side from the top. So you're cutting top to bottom each time, right? Slide it just a bit, and then take your knife and turn it at about 45 degrees, and then just put it right at the edge, and then just make a quick pop, and you'll have a flat side to do your other cutting from. Right? So then from there, you lay that flat. Then you should, from each quarter, go for like 2 to 3 slices minimum. And if you can get like 4, trust me, your apples will taste better. And you won't scoop up as much as the dip that your kids want to grab that caramel and take gigantic spoon. You laugh, Rev, because I can see Rev doing it right now.
That's the only way I ate apples, dude.
Now, if you're doing peanut butter, you got to do just halves on those. That's the other caveat. But again, you just have to adapt our methods and techniques, guys. But yeah, that's a great way to do it. But not the way I eat an apple. So,
how do you do it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I cut so many apples that way. Right, so if I love portability at apples.
For yourself.
Yeah, that's it's like the curse of the cook, right?
The mechanic too, right?
Yeah, it's like the mechanics, right? Or so I love apples because they're portable. I can pocket them, right? Bananas, I can't do so as much. I got to kind of be careful as I carry them because I can't stand mushy bananas. So I need a nice big crunchy apple, and I can throw it in my pocket. So key is you got to hold it top to bottom, right? Take a first little nibble right off the shoulder, right? From that shoulder, you get kind of like a smaller to a medium bite from it. That's going to tell you where it's at, and then that's your starting point. And then I just work my way around the shoulders and then kind of spiral it all the way down to the bottom. I don't do the core. And then that way you've got 2 nice little finger holds that you can keep tucked in right there. It spins right around, and it's an efficient way to eat an apple. And throw it out the window. Right? Don't throw it in the garbage. Just make sure you don't throw it at a car.
Unless
portability,
they deserve it.
Yeah, so you start at the shoulders. That's the key.
That is very genius.
Well, that's where the sweetest part is, so you got to start there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could have Johnny and just cut it and have his wife prepare it for him and bring it to him with caramel in his 90.
I wish you would bring me some chicken noodle soup right now, actually.
I told you. I made you some yesterday. You didn't want it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I want it now.
You got a whole bowl of TLC from all of us, buddy.
Oh, that's good enough.
You sound better, though. You sound great.
Sorry,
I appreciate you jumping on, man. I mean, this shows your dedication to us, bud.
Oh, I love all of you, except for Howling.
Well, except
I'll grow on you. It's okay.
Howling is maybe the newest, but one of the greatest new additions to the cult. He's makes me laugh constantly. Probably one of the best at giving it to me back.
I've spent too many years on the internet.
Yeah, he's very good. He dug up stuff about my family. It was incredible. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I do
way back to
background checks
Ireland.
on everyone.
Yeah, all the way back with my mom's dad. But yeah, that's an interesting Apple sidebar. So now I'm super sidetracked. So I think that's a pretty interesting place to end it. So I'll force you to sit through my self-righteous sermon so that I can continue to claim to be a tax-free entity in the state of California.
What better time? I'm sitting here staring at Juicy. She needs a good prayer. Let's go.
Oh, well, then you're gonna hate that. No, I'm just kidding. No, I wanted to touch on something before we started. I asked somebody to give me a point because I make these up on the spot, and thank God you both gave me excellent points, and I forgot them. So I'm going to go with something that I do remember that someone said earlier. So forgive me for not giving proper credit. But I think it might have been Stoney, but we talked about ego and growing, and when you first start out, there's a lot of stuff that you see from people that might be scary because some people like to make growing seem harder than it is, and that's just I guess it feeds their ego. I don't really know, but I think that people who can grow should do their best to try and make it easier and more accessible to people that they can when they're starting out, right? So when somebody's new, they don't have to be afraid of just asking questions or stuff like that. So if you try to do that in the future, I'll forgive you of all your sins. Don't be a dick, mind your own business, and go with Frog. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Yeah, thank you both.
Always a pleasure. As always, that's so much fun.
Yeah, thanks.
And thanks everybody for listening. Peace.
Oop.